This is your moment. This is your moment in time. This is your moment. This is your moment to shine, to shine, to shine. So shine on. And every time you hit the wall, remember you can have it all, even the mighty fall. It's closer than it's ever been, and now it's more than just a win. It's where your life begins, yeah. There's no holding back, no overthinking. You've been reaching all your life. This is your moment. This is your moment in time. This is your moment. This is your moment to shine, to shine, to shine. This is your moment. You got to give it all that you got. Don't hesitate and don't ever stop. You spent a lifetime waiting for this day. This is your moment. Now's not the time for you to hold back. Don't overthink, it's time to react. The moment has come, don't let it slip away, away, away. It's closer than it's ever been, and now it's more than just a win. It's where your life begins. You've tamed the voices in your head. You've put your courage to the test. Laid all your doubts to rest. Your mind is clearer than before. Your heart is full and wanting more. Your future's at the door. Give it all you got. No hesitating. You've been waiting all your life. This is your moment. This is your moment in time. This is your moment. This is your moment to shine, to shine, to shine. So shine on.
Okay. Okay, everyone should be able to hear me now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Samanthropolitics. Today is a crazy day because we are on the dawn of most likely having a new president-elect in the United States. Uh, it has been a very unprecedented race in terms of the number of mail-in ballots that there were, and also we've had the highest voter turnout ever in this election, which is really, really cool, around 66%. So despite how parties voted, the fact that all of these people are engaged, I think is a really, really cool thing. That being said, as usual, the polls were wrong. Now, after working on Hillary's campaign in 2016 and almost quitting for a congressional race because I thought Hillary didn't need me anymore, I can tell you that I was not expecting the polls to be right. But I was also kind of hoping because, as everyone knows, I lean to the left. That being said, Florida totally wrong. We saw that they were able to put ads on the radio in Spanish that were basically putting forward this propaganda that Democrats are socialists. and for a Cuban populace who fled Cuba because of communism, that does not bode well. So you saw Florida go downhill pretty quickly. But the states that we're waiting on right now, we'll tell you the latest numbers of what's going on, are Pennsylvania. And let's just get the numbers of electoral votes so we can see that. All right, so we've got Joe Biden at 253, so he needs 270 to win. So we need 17 votes for Biden to take the presidency. So right now, what we're looking at are a couple states that are really key: Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. Either Biden wins Arizona and Nevada and it puts him over the top, or he wins Pennsylvania and that also puts him over the top. Now, I was in Pennsylvania this weekend for about 4 days knocking on doors for Vice President Biden. And a couple of things I wanted to share with you that were interesting to me that I think might be interesting to you. One is that independents overwhelmingly seem to support Biden. Every independent I talked to was planning to vote for Biden. Whereas in 2016, a lot of independents were either not voting or they were voting third party. Another trend that I saw is in 2016, people were much more likely to just say that they weren't voting at all because they didn't like Hillary. I think that this is a result of sexism, but there were so many things people just didn't like her. They couldn't even name the policies that they didn't like. They just didn't like her. They had a feeling, which was ridiculous. But I didn't see that with regards to Biden, of people being like, I don't like Biden. I actually don't think I heard anyone say that they didn't like him. The only things that I heard people say potentially were, is he a little bit like out of it or too old? But I didn't actually hear anyone say they didn't like him, which I think actually speaks to double standards and sexism, which we're going to talk about with my amazing guest, Susannah, who's waiting in the wings to come on. So we saw a big shift in Pennsylvania, and Biden is now in the lead by about 15,000 votes, and it's looking like the outstanding votes are coming from the Philadelphia area, which is overwhelmingly blue. So I think there's a really good chance that Biden is going to end up taking Pennsylvania. It was also pretty scary because there were so many outstanding mail-in ballots this time that weren't there in 2016 that I don't know if you were the same as me, having a panic attack on the night of the elections, but in 2016, when Florida went, we knew it was all over. There was no absentee ballots to even think about. And so it was a little bit scary on election night because so many Democrats' votes weren't even counted at that point. The other really interesting state that popped up is Georgia. So Georgia has not voted Democratic since Bill Clinton in 1992. And I was up at 5 a.m. looking at the New York Times results. I probably, like most of you, have not slept this week because I keep waking up and going, New York Times, refresh, refresh, refresh. And this morning I saw Biden pulling ahead in Georgia and almost had a nervous breakdown. So right now, as it stands, Biden is ahead in Georgia by only 4,000 votes. I mean, that margin is just pretty wild. 4,000 votes. Again, similarly with Georgia, it's looking like the remaining ballots are coming from democratically leaning areas. So there's I think, a big possibility he will take Georgia too. Also really interesting remark about Georgia is the impact of Stacey Abrams on Georgia. And everybody's saying, Biden owes Stacey Abrams. Now, why Stacey Abrams? What did she do that was so important? Well, many of you may remember when she was running against Kemp, then Georgia's Secretary of State, he mass canceled more than 1 million voter registrations between 2012 and 2018. And in the run-up to the gubernatorial race, he froze an estimated 53,000 registrations, a lot of them belonging to African American voters. This is so crazy considering he was the person who was running. He was able to do that. I don't understand how they weren't like, hey, conflict of interest, this is highly illegal. I mean, it's like Trump saying, okay, we're going to throw Biden's all the Democrats in this state, we're going to throw them in the garbage. And that being okay. I still don't really get how that happened. So she had already started, Stacey Abrams, in 2013, something called the New Georgia Project, which did a ton of voter registrations. But after she lost, she launched another nonprofit called the Fair Fight to combat voter suppression. She was able to in her own bid, she tripled Latino, Asian American, and Pacific Islander vote. She also gained the highest percentage of the state's white Democratic voters in a generation. So I'm not sure who they were voting for, or if they weren't registered. Since in 2020, or excuse me, since 2018, Fair Fight has registered 800,000 new voters. 45% are under the age of 30, and 49% are people of color. So Stacey Abrams and her huge stepping out there to register voters is a really big piece of this. You guys also know my issue with American democracy. Why do we have to put so much effort into registering voters? Why are we not registered to vote as soon as we, get our driver's license? I literally have no idea. That's the first thing I think Biden should do, is just have automatic voter registration so we don't have to spend billions and billions of dollars registering voters. Other states that we're waiting on right now, Arizona. Arizona was looking like Biden was pretty far ahead, and it's kind of been pretty tight since then. Right now, there's a gap of about, let's see, 37,000 votes right now. We're also waiting on Nevada. Biden is up by 27,000 votes with 92% reported. I think there's a really good chance that Biden wins Nevada because a lot of the outstanding places that are also waiting to report are blue. So though the election has not been called yet for Biden, a lot of the news pundits and the economists are coming out and saying when Biden wins, this is what he's going to have to deal with. So we already have people preempting that. So we're going to wait to see. Hopefully the numbers will be in tonight and we will know, is Biden going to be our president-elect? Then you also have this issue of Trump getting on news and just peddling falsehoods about fake ballots and corruption and all this stuff. And in an unprecedented move, the major news organizations actually stopped putting him on air last night. And that was like a breath of fresh air. It was like, finally, this guy has been peddling lies for 4 years and you're finally not putting him on anymore and letting him spread this disinformation. And I think that was probably influenced by Twitter, which actually took down one of his posts and labeled the rest of them as misleading. So kudos to Twitter for really taking that step. And I think also the news organizations are like, we don't need you to like us anymore, because you're going to be gone, so we don't care if we're invited to your press conferences anymore. Peace. Bye. All right, so in terms of the gender gap, there was a lot of talk about there being a huge gender gap in this particular election, that women were going to vote more for that they were edging away from Trump. They were going to vote overwhelmingly more for Biden. That they did, but it wasn't actually as much as we thought it was going to be. So female voters are supporting Biden 56% by about only 3 points more than they did Hillary Clinton. So it wasn't as huge of a lift in terms of the number of women that we did see supporting Biden. All right, so now we're going to get into this year's history makers, and then we're going to bring in our amazing guest. So besides the presidential race, which is crazy town and is obviously occupying most of the media right now, all of the television media is focused on the presidential race, but there's been some really, really exciting House races and state Senate races that have been going on, and some incredible trendsetters. So one thing that's been happening is that we had a record number of LGBTQ candidates run. 1,006 openly LGBTQ candidates ran for office in the 2020 primary, and 574 advanced to Tuesday's general election. So let's see some of these people that won, and you're going to see a couple LGBTQ new elected officials that are making history.
They vanished into thin air.
Just please bring her home.
How can this little boy be just gone?
This is a nightmare.
New season.
The real life
Sunday at
nightmare
10
is Trump not leaving the
on
Oval
HLN.
Office. That's what that is for me.
This is our moment. This is our time, and that's how it will be. When the community is
is out in the streets protesting injustice. People want to see their leaders show up and just be with them. How do I save my son and my daughter and my other loved ones and the rest of our community from being the next hashtag step up and run?
I take pride in becoming the first openly LGBTQ elected official from New York City.
I do think that our policy making is informed by our lived experiences and that we get better policy outcomes when we have more people in office for whom policy is personal.
There's a new generation of Republicans and conservatives coming up that is going to represent all people.
My name is Sarah McBride, and I am a proud transgender American.
Freaking love her.
I've spent my life fighting for people to have dignity, peace of mind, and a fair shot at staying afloat and getting ahead.
I promise to stand shoulder to shoulder with you in this fight to better Oklahoma. My pronouns are she and they.
This is a long way from where I started.
Sounds like y'all ready for victory. Yeah!
Alrighty. So we saw a lot of firsts there, and so the one thing that wasn't mentioned is New Mexico becomes the first state to elect all women of color to their state house, which was also really cool, which wasn't mentioned there. But I want to bring in our guest now because she is absolutely the most equipped person to talk to this, and I'm just so delighted to have her as my guest today because she has been working her tushy off for the last, God knows how many months and then the lead up to this election. So Susannah Welford founded 2 organizations over the last 2 decades designed to raise the political voice of young women in America. In the spring of 2007, Susannah founded Running Start, and that's where I met her at a Running Start training when I moved to DC, to inspire young women and girls to pursue political leadership. Running Start furthers the work begun by the Women Under 40 Political Action Committee, which Susannah co-founded in 1999 and led for 5 years. She's a globally recognized expert on women in politics and speaks frequently about the importance of inspiring more young women to enter politics, and she has a column everywhere. In addition to speaking and training at law schools, universities, nonprofits, and private companies in the U.S., she has lectured in the Maldives, Sri Lanka, Israel, Belgium, Ukraine, Algeria, England, Germany, and Russia. She served as an opinion contributor at U.S. News and World Report, and I recommend that you check out her articles, are fantastic, on gender and politics. And she's the co-author of a chapter in Feminist Pedagogy, Practice, and Activism, Improving Lives for Women and Girls. She's won multiple awards for her work, including the Excel Honors Youth Advocate Award in 2019 and the John W. Kuykendall Award for Community Service from Davidson. She recently participated in the Joint Civilian Orientation Course, the oldest and most prestigious public liaison program in the United States Department of Defense. And in the spring of 2020, the lucky students at American University started getting her as their professor on a course on women and political leadership. After receiving her JD from UVA School of Law, she worked for several years at Werner, Lipfert, Bernhard, McPherson, and Hand, lobbying for state and local governments, foreign governments, corporate entities, and trade associations before Congress and the executive branch. So I'm going to, without further ado, hello!
Hi, Samantha.
Hi, I'm so delighted to have you here with me.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for asking me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, what do you think on these history makers? Like, how did all of these people break these boundaries like that?
It's interesting because you always hear you can't be what you can't see. And, these women, they are being something that nobody else has done. And that takes a particular type of courage. And we have a lot of women in Running Start who go through our training programs who are also like that. They look at Congress and they don't see anybody who looks like them. Although I suppose now there are way more. And we always tell them, the way that you persevere is you have to have an issue you care about so deeply that you're just going to push through no matter what. And so I think that that's the same for many of the women who won on Tuesday.
So so everybody knows, a record number of women are set to serve in U.S. Congress next year, with 129 women set to join the House and Senate. And this is also without the Georgia special runoffs, which could end up with another woman who's, she's a Republican, so I'm not thrilled. But there could be another woman. This breaks the record set in 2019 when 127 women served in the U.S. Congress. So Kelly Loeffler is the one that's doing the January runoff. Also, Senator Harris, if she becomes vice president, her seat's going to be open.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Right. So we could lose Kamala Harris, and some of us really hope that happens. But then we could gain Kelly Loeffler. But then we're one less than we were previously in the Senate.
Yeah. I think you should run for that seat, or me. I don't know.
Oh, I think you should run for that seat. Why not? Yeah, let's. It might be a little bit late this time, Samantha. I don't know the rules, but I think it's a little bit late.
I had my first one-on-one meeting with Susannah when Elizabeth Esty, who's my representative from Connecticut, was dropping because of how she mishandled sexual assault claims in her office. And I was debating running for that congressional seat kind of at the last minute. And Susannah pushed me to do it, but I hadn't been in Connecticut for a long enough time. I'd been living in D.C. But I fully plan to run for Congress at some point.
Yeah, there will be another day.
And you see all these news reporters that just won. Like Donna Shalala's seat was just taken by
Maria Salazar,
who's a Telemundo reporter.
Right. Yes, you see, there's precedent.
So can you talk about the work of Running Start and what you do?
Yeah, I definitely can. I want to just start though, and just you were talking about the numbers, and I think it's so interesting that we had more women running this time than ever before in history. 2018 also broke records. I think it was like 600 and something women running, and we're gonna gain seats, like you say. We're not gaining that many. I mean, I think the best case that I came up with is 155 total, House and Senate, if everybody whose race is yet undecided wins. But it's a little depressing to me, and I think that we will have these banner headlines that say, this is a great year, we're gaining so many seats, and yet here we are again, where we're just like inching up slowly. And you were also talking about how many women of color ran this year. I think it was 130 Black women ran for office this year for Congress, and the number of women of color in Congress is not going to change. I mean, maybe it'll change a little bit, but I mean, it's basically what it was last time. So it's good that we're talking about Running Start, because Running Start is all about changing this dynamic.
Let's stop for 1 second, Susannah, because I want to just highlight something that you said. So with the new women in Congress, we're still only 30%. And that still puts us behind Afghanistan, Iraq, Turkmenistan,
Rwanda.
Yeah. And it was so interesting because last week I interviewed Milan Verveer, and
I love her.
I want to be her. Just if I could get 1/10 of my life done, what she's done, like my life is complete. But she was talking about how it was so funny because we go into Afghanistan and we're like, oh, we want you to have a quota for women in your Congress or your parliament, but then we don't do the same things for ourselves.
No, it's so crazy.
Why do we not do quotas? I still can't wrap my head around this.
Should we not talk about anything else and only talk about that the rest of the show? Because I'm kidding, but I get so worked up about quotas because it's it works. I mean, we see it work all over the world. If you look at the countries who have the most women, they all have quotas.
Yep.
But there's something about America where we say, oh, we could never, ever do that. That is un-American. We're not going to do it. It would never fly. And I frankly don't get it. I had a really good talk with this Irish woman at a conference a few years ago. And we were talking about, like, how can we increase more, the number of women in America? And she's like, well, you should think about quotas. And all of the other women at the conference, all the other American women, just totally shut her down. And she said, the Irish woman said, this is the way people used to talk in Ireland. And we were finally able to convince them, and politics changed completely because of it. So.
Yeah. Is that something that you advocate for? I mean, vocally?
No. So Running Start does not advocate for any issues. So we stay very, very policy neutral. We're also totally nonpartisan. We do not, as an organization, advocate for quotas. I'm just telling you my personal opinion that why can't we just consider them?
I'm like, I want to advocate for them. I am on the show right here.
Why don't you do a show on quotas? I think that would be a really great idea, just on quotas. I think that'd be wonderful.
And it shows too that when you have women in public office, they're more likely to take care of women. Like Nevada passed I don't know, 17 things that were gender responsive laws because Nevada has 50% women in their state house.
Right.
So it's much more likely.
There's so many examples of that, and looking at New Zealand with their female prime minister, the fabulous Jacinda. I mean, and how well I think they haven't had a case of corona in the country in a little while. I mean, it's just women, we get stuff done, and we need to start recognizing the importance of adding more women, but also of having a better balance of power generally.
Yeah. Also, so with regards to women of color, why did more women of color not win, do you think?
Good. I mean, I don't know, and I haven't seen anything that that really talks about why they didn't. It's really frustrating. I mean, there were some really great women running on both sides of the aisle, and in the end, they didn't prevail. So. I think that America takes a while sometimes to come around to things, and we're still having trouble electing women and electing Black women, Latina women, Indigenous women. I guess it takes the electorate a little bit of time to come around and to fully embrace, but it's coming, Samantha. It's totally coming, and this wave is not going to stop. And I think that that's the exciting thing, is that these women, they ran because they were really fired up and angry, and the ones who didn't win, most people have to run for Congress more than once.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's what we have to look forward to, is that they're going to run, and they'll prevail the next time.
Do you have any idea? So the other trend that we wanted to talk about is just like they said that, it was the pink wave in 2018. They're calling this, they haven't termed it the red wave yet, but I guess you could say it was the red wave in terms of women Republicans who have won office.
Yeah.
So, they're poised to add at least 13 seats, bringing their total to as many as 33. The previous record for GOP women in the House was 25.
So, yeah, I think that we may well get more than 13 also. It was really interesting in 2018, people calling it the year of the woman, and yet it really was the year of the Democratic woman almost entirely. And Running Start is a nonpartisan organization, and we get really dismayed that when we are looking to bring in speakers and role models for the young women, there just are not enough Republican electeds to come speak to our Republican young women. But the reason that there was this red wave that you're talking about, it's because Elise Stefanik and some awesome groups like Winning for Women and ViewPAC, they got really serious, and they finally said, enough is enough. We are going to be incredibly intentional, and the whole party has to be intentional about helping to get more Republican women on the ballot. I think I read somewhere that some of them were saying, the party actually didn't help very much, but But I think that it is that intentionality. If you want to add something new to politics, you really have to work at it very hard and be very intentional about seeking those people out and making sure they have what it takes to win.
It also sounds like strategically it was a smart move because everyone was seeing these suburban women who were traditionally Republicans move away from Trump, but then thinking maybe they'll align with a Republican woman candidate who's not so Trumpian.
Well, I mean, I think the interesting thing that I've been geeking out over these numbers so hard. I just have to tell you, like, I literally, like, I don't know if you can see my little book, but I have, like, I've gone through every race, and I'm only looking at the women, but so the Republicans so far have flipped 8 seats in the House. Democrats have flipped 3. All but so 6 of the 8 Republicans were women, were women's races, and all 3 of the Democratic seats that were flipped were women winning. And interestingly, on the Republican side, 4 of the 6 races that they flipped, or districts that they flipped, they were women on women races. So the Republican woman defeated a Democratic woman. So yeah, it's really interesting. There's a lot of power in with the Republican women this year.
What were the seats that the women flipped in the Democratic side?
Well, one was just today, like just hours ago. It was Carolyn Boudreaux from Georgia. And that was, I cannot remember. I don't remember the men. I remember the women. I know all the women, but I don't remember the men. But it was a very close race, and she just pulled ahead today and was announced the winner. And then there were 2 in North Carolina, Deborah Ross and Kathy Manning. So
interesting. And how many women of color in the Republican side? Like, do we see an equal number of women of color running on the Republican side?
You know, it's really too bad. So we have no women of color on the Republican side in the Senate, and we have one. No, we don't. We have 2. So Jamie Herrera Butler, who is serves in Washington State, and then the new woman who you were just referencing, the Telemundo reporter Salazar, is Cuban American, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, for a long time, the people of color and the women were all on the Democratic side.
Okay. I'm a Democrat. And my last show, I went into this huge thing about how states that are democratically run have higher gender equality in terms of their laws, in terms of protection from sexual violence. Why do I don't even understand why women are Republicans. Like, why do women choose Republican that side?
But I think that there are a million reasons. I mean, I think that one thing that upsets me is this idea that women are a monolith. And I think that, there's so many different things that drive all of us. Some of us are socially conservative and fiscally liberal, and some are the opposite. And I think yeah, right. That's what I was trying to say. But I think that it's a mistake that we sometimes make, thinking like all women have to be. I was at I go to lots and lots of meetings with women who run other organizations who are helping to get more women into politics, or just helping empower women generally. And I remember so clearly a few years ago, a woman who ran this major women's organization basically saying, you are not a woman if you are pro-life. And I just have to tell you, Samantha, I think you already know this, but I mean, personally, I'm a Democrat. I've always voted Democratic. And I am very liberal in my social views. But I think that there's room for all women in power and in politics. And I want to see more diversity, because getting that real diversity of everything, of race, of ideology, of religion, etc., that's what gives us the best results in making decisions.
So I'm going to push back on that in one particular race this year, which is Marjorie, who is the one aligned with the QAnon conspiracies.
I know who she is.
Fit into your? Where does that fit?
So I think, okay, so first of all, I haven't even defined what Running Start is. And it's
Oh,
just
sorry.
that I'm so excited about politics that, so I'm going to say two things about Running Start, and then
let's go
I'll tell
back
you.
and then let's talk about Running Start,
Yes.
what Running Start is.
I won't forget about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Running Start was founded back in 2007 to basically change the balance of power by getting young women to see themselves as people who ought to be in power, especially in politics. And so this really came about because I did research that showed that women don't run for office because they don't feel qualified to run. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. Like, women are just as qualified to run for Congress as men. And so Running Start trains high school and college age women to understand what it takes to get into politics. And we teach them confidence, we teach them capabilities, which, the skills that they need, and then we connect them to power so that they have a better chance of actually getting along that pipeline and actually winning. And as I've said, I think 3 times, we are totally nonpartisan, and so we accept everybody. And I think that's one of the coolest things about Running Start is that we have real diversity of thought, and we have these groups of people come together who otherwise wouldn't be having conversations about politics, and we do it with respect. And the idea is people will learn how to talk to people who don't believe things that they believe, and that they'll gain respect for at least the thinking of how the other side is determining issues. So, and that is a long way of saying So I want to take off my Running Start hat and tell you that I think that there are some exceptions. I really do. And I think that the extremists, frankly, on both sides, who think that violence is ever the answer to governing, or that hate or racism is acceptable. I mean, I just there are limits, and this is. I don't know if you read the Washington Post story about her opponent, her Democratic opponent, but it was, well, Samantha, you and everybody who's listening to your program should listen should read that Washington Post piece, because I think that there are times where there are people who are just they're not going to fit into the Running Start vision.
So what does the Washington Post piece talk about?
It talks about her opponent, who was this just mild-mannered, he wasn't a librarian, but in my head he was a librarian. And he decided to run for Congress for all these like really feel-good reasons. And then she got in the race, and they basically, they ended up running him out of town. He ended up actually dropping out of the race and leaving town because of death threats and such threats of violence against him. And this poor mild-mannered guy just was like, "It's not worth it. I've got to get out of here." So anyway,
wow, that is horrible.
I think that, our system of government is it's a unifier. It's one of the things that both sides believe in. We believe in the Constitution. We believe in the way that our system is structured. And I think that there are people who want to tear that down, and I think that that's a little terrifying to me.
Yeah, so that's the only area I would kind of think about. And I mean, this whole concept of people that are party to conspiracy theories and spreading them. Well, then again, the president was spreading QAnon tweets, so maybe that's like not so crazy. But that is just so horrible. The death threats and the same thing. It's like with MAGA protesters protesting outside of polling places right now, saying "Stop the vote! Stop the vote!" Or weren't they armed in Michigan? They came fully armed with That's terrifying.
I totally agree.
Oh.
I totally agree.
So let's see. So what do you feel like the effect is of women in office?
Oh, so it's interesting. I realize that when I'm speaking to groups of women, that topic almost never comes up. But when I'm speaking to mixed groups, it very frequently comes up. The men are like, "So what would this give us?" So I think that, well, I mean, okay, there's like, I have a whole laundry list. One of the things is that women tend to work across the aisle better.
Right.
And if you look at Congress today, like we're not getting anything done. We have total deadlock. And it doesn't mean that you have to be conciliatory. It just means listening to the other side, working together where it makes sense, not just, making it black and white, they're evil and we're good. So women tend to be a little bit better at that. Corruption, sex scandals. I mean, we don't do those things very often. And I think that the less tangible things are that when women are put into a position of power where they haven't been before, they bring with them their life experience as a woman. They bring all of these issues that our Congress, that is still majority old, white, male, Christian. I'm sure there's some other things that they haven't experienced personally, and most of the time, people legislate on things that they have seen with their own eyes, that they felt, they've experienced in their families, and so I think that that's one of the really important reasons we need women in, and that we need to get those firsts that you showed earlier. We need to get people in with totally different life experience that might not have been represented before.
Right. I mean, there's a reason that we're the only developed country in the Western world that doesn't have paid maternity leave.
Oh, I mean, you go to any other country, it is so shocking to me that that other countries have figured it out and they do it so much better.
And the other thing, I mean, we also have this horrible crisis of rising maternal mortality. We're also the only developed country with rising maternal and infant mortality. And it's like 5 times higher amongst African American women, but it's still bad amongst white women.
Right.
It's not good.
No, I know. It is really shocking. But that, as we said earlier, it's changing. It's just changing really slowly. But yeah, I think that, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say there was also a really good report by King's College about women political leaders and how they differ. A couple of the things that it said is that they tend to be more proactive legislators. They actually get more bills on the table.
Yeah, bring more money home to their districts too.
That's the other thing. They also are more responsive to constituents in general. They care more about constituents. And when they talk about why they want to run for office, they're more likely to talk about public good and serving others rather than gaining power themselves.
So I have a question that I haven't figured out yet. So do you think that when we do finally hit 50-50, women and men, do you think that some of these things that make women so valuable, do you think that some of that will change, as they get accustomed to power?
So it's funny. So Susannah, and I haven't told you this, but I'm running an 8-week course right now called it's a women's leadership challenge. So it's women from across the globe, all different industries. They're all like managerial level and up, intergenerational, interracial. And my class that I'm teaching on Sunday is called Deconstructing Your Inner Patriarchy. And
oh God.
I know. And the purpose though is exactly what you're saying, is that you're right, like that we can internalize those patriarchal systems and see that in order to get ahead, we have to behave like men. We have to fit into the workplace as a masculinity contest. And so, the reason I'm teaching that is to identify how it is affected limiting self-beliefs of like what it means to be a woman and what's possible for women, but it's also to have that awareness of how is your industry or your work, how are they saying that a woman's supposed to be, how are they saying what success is like, how are they saying what a leader looks like.
Well, this is a little off topic, but so many organizations, my own included, have started to really dig deep on diversity and inclusion within the workplace, within our workplaces, but also with our universe generally, our programs. And I think that is the main sticking point, is being aware of sort of what you don't know and your bias that you're bringing into everything, and then trying to get rid of it.
Yeah, and and I think I also talk a lot about feminist leadership, and feminist leadership principles are really about lifting up marginalized groups.
Right. Right.
and equality. And I think it's amazing that you're doing that. And
well, I mean, I have to tell you that one of the best things about Running Start is from the absolute very first class that we ever had, which was in 2007, we've had incredible diversity. I mean, we have women coming from communities where that are incredibly underserved, and they're coming to us because they want to figure out how to get into power. They want to figure out, like, if we have all these problems in my community and nobody is fixing them, then maybe I need to be the one who fixes it. So that's been one of the gifts of Running Start, is that we have had such beautiful diversity in every program, for all 14 years. And like I said, like, our challenge now is to make sure that we're serving everybody, based on all of the things that all of the different factors that create barriers in different people's lives, depending on their identity.
One of the young women I met at Running Start at the conference years ago was raised in foster care.
Right.
And she was one of the most talented. She was stunningly beautiful, unbelievably talented, well-spoken. And I just remember thinking, like, this girl's going to get in office and she's going to fix the foster care system.
Yeah, but that's it, right? I mean, and that's why I don't think there's anybody in Congress right now who went through the foster care system. Maybe it is, right. But maybe there is. But I think, yeah, that's exactly it. It's that you need to have such a wide breadth of people with different experiences, so they can go in there and change things.
Yeah, absolutely. Other things that were interesting is that women in office are associated with lower levels of conflict, fewer human rights abuses within their countries, and less military spending.
Yes.
So something that's, and that's feminist foreign policy principles as well. But something I was talking about with Milan or Stephanie, someone I had on the show, is that Jean Shaheen is the only woman on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
Oh my God, is that true?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That is so crazy.
There's a couple on the House, but there's one woman on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
Well, I don't know if you, I cannot think of a name of a single one of these groups, but there are lots of groups trying to get women onto security councils around the world because of exactly the research you were just saying, that when women are included in those discussions, then there's a better chance for peace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, you're seeing all of these young women, and we started by saying, you can't be what you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
What have you seen in terms of the effect of having a female VP nominee who's a woman of color?
I mean, so let me just back up and say, when Hillary Clinton ran in 2008 and Barack Obama ran, so we have people, when they apply to our programs, they write essays on why they're interested in running for office and what politics means to them. And we got the most poignant essays, like, until I saw Hillary Clinton on the ticket, I never knew, excuse me, I never knew somebody like me could do this. And then, oh my gosh, even more poignant about Barack Obama. Like, my father told me that this would never happen, and he got tears in his eyes when he saw Obama. And so, yeah, for Kamala, I feel like, since Obama, there's been a darkness. And I think that having her be in such a high position, it will mean everything to so many women. I mean, she is an icon on a number of levels. And I think we'll see the same effect where people say, Kamala can do it, and I can do it too.
Yeah.
Effect.
So extraordinary. And
yeah,
I mean, just the idea that I am so excited about this election, not just because Trump's finally gone and he's an authoritarian dictator, but because, we have the first woman of color who's likely going to be the nominee in 4 years.
I know. So, Samantha, after Hillary Clinton lost in 2008, I don't know if you remember, but there were a lot of articles saying that's it. We're not going to have a female president in our lifetime. I mean,
That's awful.
My own mother said that, and I was like, "That's crazy! Like we could have one, we could have one next cycle because there's so many amazing women out there, and it's really exciting to me to think how well the women running for president this time did and how inspirational they were. And then, yeah, what do you say about Kamala?
So
it would be exciting.
Yeah, it's so cool. So speaking of which, one of the barriers that you talk about with regards to women running and thinking about Hillary Clinton is just double standards and attacks on appearance. And you bring up in an article you wrote, and this was striking to me, you said, at the 2016 Republican National Convention, I was shocked to see pins and t-shirts for sale criticizing then Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton in the most personal ways. One said, KFC Hillary special, 2 fat thighs, 2 small breasts, left wing.
Yeah, I remember that. It's so shocking, right? I mean, it's so disrespectful. It's so awful.
Like no one's commenting on Trump's size of his, genitalia, right? On a t-shirt.
Yeah. You're totally right. It goes both ways. It definitely does. But, women the attacks on women tend to be more sexualized. And I think that I know that it dissuades people from thinking about running for office because they don't want to go there. I heard the other day, Erin Schrody, I think, who ran in California at the age of 25. She was a speaker at one of our programs last Friday, and just talking about what happened in her race, like threats of rape, death threats, just like incredibly vile, repulsive things said on social media about her. And one of the things we have to tell the students who go through our program is, you're going to face this ugliness. There's really no way to shield yourself from it, but you just have to, it's like what I said before, you have to arm yourself with just a rock solid mission and reason for wanting to run that is going to help you to brush that stuff aside and stand up tall and just keep going.
Well, and we're also seeing, there was a report about social media attacks against women politicians. And one of the things that they said is that women are banding together to repel those attacks by those trolls, which I think is amazing.
I think it's amazing too. And there's also this group called Name It, Change It that works with women who are being attacked. And one of the things that they tell them to do is to just, don't hide from the attack. Don't pretend it's not there, but just face it head on. And the best example of that, do you remember Crystal Ball, who ran for Congress in Virginia? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, now I feel like it was a long time ago. She's now on MSNBC, but there was a picture leaked of her with like sexual undertones. And I think that people thought that as soon as that picture was leaked, she'd just be right out of the race, just out of embarrassment. And she did a press conference and she basically said, if this picture that happened when I was 20 at a party, if this picture gets, knocks me out of the race, then nobody under 30 can run for office because everybody has a picture. Social media has captured everybody in some unflattering way.
Yeah, I was just throwing the organization in the chat.
Okay.
What are your thoughts? I was very conflicted about the Katie Hill situation. What were your thoughts? And so just in case people don't know, basically Katie Hill's ex-husband posted all of these nude photos of her all over the internet, he like sell them to right-wing media, and that's who did them first.
He leaked them. Yeah.
So there was that, but then there was also that she had a relationship with a staffer on her campaign.
Right.
So there were those two kind of conflicting things, but basically she dropped out. I mean, she resigned.
She did.
What was your opinion on, I don't know, do you think she should have resigned or what? That whole thing was just bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was so sad. She was such a promising member of Congress. It's funny. I think that the relationship with the staffer muddies things a lot, but certainly, naked photos. I can't imagine why that would cause anybody to drop out of the race. We had we have an alum who is the youngest elected to the Illinois State House.
Wow.
And she's this
How
just,
old is she?
Oh, I mean, maybe she's 26, but I mean, maybe she's not even 26. She's really, really young. Avery Bourne is her name. And when she was running, I think it must have been her second race, somebody photoshopped a naked body onto her head and then sent photos out or postcards out to people in her district. And, you know, there's so many ways people can manipulate your image now that it just seems like the stigma has got to disappear. It's got to change.
Yeah. And it seemed like I was listening to an interview with Katie, and she was just, it sounded like she was frankly terrified of her ex-husband. I mean, it sounded like that triggered all of this stuff with her, and her feeling like he was never going to leave her alone if she stayed in Congress, and like it seemed like her own mental health was at stake.
Right. Yeah.
But it was so sad. It was just like
so sad. It was so sad. I felt like I was just getting to know her as a congresswoman when this all happened. And people are very quick to vilify.
Yeah. What are the other things that you see in terms of the biggest barriers or challenge for women, you know, thinking about running for office?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny because media scrutiny is definitely a really big one, but the biggest one continues to be the age-old, I don't feel qualified, which is, it's so funny. Jennifer Lawless did the study that sort of brought that to media attention. I think it was in 2003. She did a study that basically said the number one reason that women don't want to run for office is they don't feel qualified. And you just think, my gosh, so much has happened since 2003. You'd think that would have changed, because she keeps doing the study and finds the results the same. And so a really big part of what we do at Running Start is confidence building. And that sounds like such a soft skill, but it is, in some ways, it's the hardest skill of all, because if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe that you deserve to be in that room, then you're not gonna do the hard things you need to do to run for office. So that continues to be the number one thing that we work with women on. And I'll tell you too, Samantha, so I work with young women, so 13, 14, you know, some of them are as old as 25, but like young women. But occasionally I will train much, much older women. And I think it was sometime last year, I went to a local synagogue and talked to a group of women, and they were in their 60s, 70s. I think there might even have been some older than that. And they all have the same, you know, they have the exact same feelings. So it's really universal. And we always tell people, you know, just you have to recognize that confidence is a muscle, and you need to exercise it every chance you get and do those hard things that will it'll make you more confident so that you can get out there and run the world.
Do you think that with Trump being so uniquely unqualified that's affected women's perceptions at all?
That's interesting. I wonder, I mean, I think the women running for Congress this time are, you know, you always think that women running for Congress have got to be a little better than men running for Congress just because the scrutiny is more. But I didn't see any lessening of qualifications this time.
Yeah.
But maybe there's somebody who's like, he could do it, and so I could do it too.
Yeah, it's just so funny. I mean, my big thing lately, and because I do so much coaching of women, I say that the enemy of women is the concept of perfection, and that there is a perfectly qualified person. You know, that there's a certain thing. These are criteria. This is the perfection, and I'm so far from that, and therefore, what do I have to bring?
No, it's something that is so frustrating. So many women who I talk to feel that way. Like, I can't do this until I get a master's degree, or I can't do this until, you know, whatever, I've checked this box. And I think the most frustrating thing is that I find myself falling into the same traps. And I feel like I can usually pull myself out of it quickly because I've spent so much time doing that for other people. But it, you know, women have, for the history of the world, we haven't been those people who were We haven't been the leaders. We haven't been the people that were in power. And so really very recently in history have we asserted our power, and have we risen to power in real numbers. And it makes sense that we still have this somewhere in our psyche saying, I don't think I have what it takes. I don't think that I am good enough. And so one of the big things that we do at Running Start is just try to bat down that voice and get them to flex their confidence muscle.
Right, and recognize, like you're saying, the unique value that they bring
Yeah.
based upon their
Right.
person and their life experiences.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's exactly right.
So I wanted to ask you, so what about some of the biggest motivators for women to run for office? We talked about challenges.
Yeah, but I think you said it before. You said that women run for cause. It's funny. I always think of this story, and it's pretty dated now. I need to come up with a better one. But Patty Murray, senator from Washington State, she ran because she was upset with the schools in her district, and so that was what she ran on, and she won. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons that women run is they see a problem and they think maybe nobody else is doing anything about it, and they can be that person.
So how can people here support your work?
You're so lovely to ask that question. Thank you very much. So you can go to runningstart.org, and there's several ways. We always would love donations because our programming, we offer almost more scholarships than we do have paying students come. And the other way is if you know a young woman who you think needs encouragement, who sort of has that leadership potential, but doesn't really have the training, or maybe she doesn't have mentors helping her along, then write me an email. Tell me about this woman. We have a lot of programs, and frankly, ever since COVID, we've had more than ever because we're doing a lot of virtual programming. So we've actually weirdly quadrupled our programming since COVID, just because it's easy to do Zoom training. So yeah, Susannah at runningstart.org.
So they can write you an email and point out who that woman is. And what age group is this?
So we do high school program, then we have 2 college programs, and then we have mentorship and networking programs too. So it's really, like I said, like 13 up to maybe 25, although sometimes older.
Okay, great. Any last things that you'd like to kind of point out on the eve of a potential new president in the United States?
You made me nervous when you said maybe even tonight we'll find out. I can't hear soon enough. And I bet that the entire country is feeling, not just the entire country, like the entire world is watching this election. I know, it's so exciting, but it's very, very, very stressful for me, and I'm not sleeping either. And let's get this done so we can carry on with the work we need to do to make this country a better place.
Do you think Trump's going to leave?
The country.
the country, or I mean, is he gonna, like, there was the funniest article today that said that Biden campaign basically referred to him, we have ways to get trespassers out of the White House, which was hysterical.
No, I saw that too. I think that maybe Trump will actually be relieved. I think that he's a businessman and he'll go back to doing business and making money. And I'm sure he'll be much more successful than before because
he has all this name recognition now.
Yeah, exactly.
President. Now he can go make millions of dollars, speaking on stages about being the worst president in American history.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Susannah. It was such a pleasure, and thank you for the wonderful and incredibly important work that you do.
Thank you so much, Samantha. Keep up this podcast. I love this whole idea, and very happy to have been on. Thanks.
Okay. So that was Susannah Welford of Running Start, which is an organization that trains young women to run for office and to have the confidence and the chutzpah to go after it. And they've had some amazing success stories of young women, like she said, who became the youngest elected official in, I think it was Illinois, she said, and a lot of other places. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Samanthropolitics. Oh, sorry, yes, Samanthropolitics. Forgot the name of my own show. If you live in Georgia, make sure you check to see if your ballot was accepted by your county board of elections. You can cure your ballot. So basically, it means like submit a new signature to basically have your vote counted. That's really important right now. And I don't know who we're going to have next week. We're going to see. Life is crazy. The election is crazy. But when I talk to you next week, we will, inshallah, have a new president elect. And I'm hoping that will be Joe Biden and the first vice president woman of color in history elect, which is Kamala Harris. So until next week, thanks again for watching Samanthropolitics. I'll see you next Friday.